Let me get my stuff together. Let's get into this. So here's the thing. Disclaimer. I've already recorded this entire video once. I realized I did not have face detection set on my camera when I started to record. I would say 60% of this whole video was out of focus. You gotta go harder. Sometimes you gotta do it all over again. Let's go. What's up, y'all? This is Henny. You got questions, I've got answers. I appreciate everybody who's hit me on my direct messages, on my comments, everywhere to send questions on what they'd like to know about music production, about video production, about being a, hold on, you're not on point. Please don't fail me again, okay? I don't need. I want to thank everybody for reaching out, sending their questions out, putting their questions in my comments on my Instagram post, and I hope that I can get to as many of them as possible without making this video too long. And I really appreciate everybody who's supporting this community and supporting this channel and supporting me on all my social media platforms. You know what it is, it's all love, and that's what I'm trying to do, is give it right back. So without further ado, let's get into the Q&A. Run it! The business. Let's just go straight in to the comments. And I apologize, I will not try to pronounce your names or your screen names. I don't want to mess them things up. I will put the comment on the screen so that you can see it somewhere. So let's go. What are your opinions on selling beats online with beat stores versus the more traditional methods like how you and Dow came up? There's a lot of comments that asked about, selling beats, leasing beats, selling beats online, leasing beats online. And let me tell you my perspective on that. When it comes to, getting started and really building your brand, the main objective is to get as much content out there as possible, whatever you're doing. And if you are a new producer just starting out, or you're just trying to get your first placement, or you're trying to get that first sell, you want to make sure that you put yourself in the best possible situation that you possibly can. And a lot of people have had success with using like online beat stores, online leasing websites, stuff like that. Right? And you're selling your tracks for, a minimal amount, $30, $40, $50, $60, and you're leasing it for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of spins, downloads, plays, whatever it may be. And it's helping you not only earn a living from it, but at the same time, it's also allowing you to build your brand up and people get to know your name. The difference is that, as you try to become a little bit more professional. And what I say about being more professional, but maybe being more into the actual industry, is you might want to build more relationships with some of these artists that are using these tracks and not just uploading beats and not having really a face to your product. That's when you can kind of find yourself frustrated because you want a little bit more out of this career than just uploading and getting paid. Some people, that's all they care about. That's cool. You can continue leasing beats and selling on a beat store your entire career. But if you want a little bit more, you maybe want to work with the artist. You maybe want to really start to see the benefits of actually producing artists and working with songwriters and engineers and, all of those things. You're going to have to take your talents outside of your room, outside of the network that you have, and continue to build. And so there's two different ways that you can really go about it. But for me, as I came up, it was all about building relationships and building a network with the community that you have around you. And so we started small and we built around, and as we traveled and as we continued to meet people when we traveled, we would build our network and we would build our reach. And as we built our reach, we're able to, build relationships with other people, build circles with other, artists and managers, and that's how we were able to get placements. And so there's still that I don't think that way will ever change, because it's basically the principles of networking and relationship building. You know, if I were to go back and talk to myself 20 years ago, I would definitely tell myself, you know, focus on, you know, learning how to build your relationships. I would say that using an online beat store, a leasing website, is a great platform to get started with. Just know that it can kind of hit a glass ceiling when you want to get to a point of maybe really working and building relationships with these artists, because, you know, for them just clicking and buying and leasing, you're never really creating that relationship. So that's my take on that. Do you mix on the iPad, or do you export to a desktop DAW? What do you do when you need other sounds from like Kontakt, etc.? Do you use an audio interface? Well, number one, I do mix on the iPad, but usually I start out with a record. When I'm creating a record, I start out with the track. When I start out with the track, I'm on my iPad, right? I'm creating with my iPad, and I'm trying to get a beat to sound as great as it possibly can to play in the studio for the artists, for the songwriters, because that's my normal way of creating a record. And then from there, we'll take those ideas, and I will take a device to plug it into my iPad, get the file from that, and then give it to the engineer. The engineer will then plug it into Pro Tools or Logic, whatever DAW that we're using in the studio, and then we'll start to create a song from that idea. And then from that idea, we'll, if we ever get to the point where we're going to a mixing phase, I will send my stems that I had from my iPad to the mixing engineer and to fully mix the entire record. And from that, we'll go back and forth, get the record exactly how we need it to get. Then it'll go to mastering, and then you'll hear the record once it comes out. And that's kind of the process of where I'm at today. Now, when it comes to sounds, like, you know, plugins and Kontakt and all these great sounds that you have, that we've had for years on a traditional DAW, Ableton, FL, Logic, Pro Tools. If I'm looking for a specific sound or specific, you know, patch that I love, I'll try to see if I can find something similar if they do not have that as an iOS app. There's so many great apps out there that have tremendously cool sounds. I tend to just not worry so much about the older sounds that I have, and the tracks that I've created on those old devices. I just kind of keep it there, and I've kind of started fresh and learning and relearning new apps and new sounds. So I don't worry so much about not having, you know, specific libraries on my iPad anymore. And as for audio interfaces, I've used a ton with, you know, with my iPad, everything from the Apogee system, like the Apogee 1, the Apogee Duet, the Apogee Quartet, to like the M-Audio interfaces, the RME, the Fireface. Right now I'm just using a Shure, MVI. I like, you know, to keep things small and get what I need to get done. But, you know, there's things from Zoom. You know, there's a ton of interfaces out there that can get the job done. You know, the question is what will you be doing, and what will you be bringing into the iPad? So if you're bringing in a mic, if you're bringing in a bass or a guitar, something that's going to really need pristine digital to analog conversion, you might want to look at, you know, a trusted brand, a Shure, you know, an Apogee, even like Native Instruments makes their Kontakt Complete interface. That's great. There's tons of them out there that'll give you a great clean sound, and that's really all you're looking for. Just think about what's in your budget and go with something and start creating. If you could choose only 3 bits of gear or software for producing video making, what would they be? I love your vids, they're so inspiring. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. I would definitely say, you know, my iPad 10.5, it's the perfect size for me. It's not too big to where it almost feels like a laptop when you're carrying it. Not saying like weight-wise, but actual size-wise. And it fits in multiple different bags for me, along with, you know, a Panasonic Lumix camera. You get great value for the money. And right now I'm using a Panasonic Lumix GH5 and some type of mic. And when I talk about mic, it's like, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be doing, you know, tutorial videos? Are you just doing videos? Are you just doing production and, you know, production and video. Right now I have a ton of different mic options for myself. I'm recording right now on a Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. I also have right here is a Rode Smart Lav. It's kind of like a lav, or you could go with just like a Shure, one of the Shure devices that I use, the plug straight into my iOS device. And all of these work very well for doing video and audio. And so check my kit out. I got a lot of suggestions on my kit. That's kit.com/hennythebusiness. But also look at what your budget is and see how you can try to get as much within your budget as possible if you're trying to do both video and audio. A couple questions asked about how I manage, balancing my life as a family man, as a man of God, as a husband, as a father, musician, a producer, creative. And this is a huge question. I don't take this question lightly because, when you're looking at your path, when you're looking at what you're trying to do in the scope of your life, I believe it was about 5 years ago when I really realized that, being a father, being a husband, was just as important and just as time consuming as being a producer. And if you want to be great at that as well as being great, in your career, it's going to take time. And you're going to, if anybody's watched Gary Vee videos or any other inspirational videos, they'll tell you it's, you gotta make your bed, you gotta lie in that thing. And, I looked at my life and I said, I wanted to be great. I wanted to be a great man. I want to leave this earth and people say, oh man, Henny, he was a great man, a great father, producer, husband, grandfather, whatever it's going to be in my time. And I knew that by saying that, I'm going to have to sacrifice some things. So I've had to sacrifice not having as many late hours in the studio as much, or traveling as much as I used to be able to be there for my children and my wife, and to know that being a husband, that teamwork is one of the biggest points of my marriage. My wife has a great career. She's an interior designer, and she has a lot going for herself. And to be able to have her have a career that's just as flourishing as mine, we both have to juggle and be a teamwork with the children and the way we run our household. And so all of these things, along with trying to keep a flourishing career in the music industry, is a lot. It takes time management, it takes patience, it takes understanding, and just knowing that you have to adapt. And so I adapted, and that was one of the reasons I went with the iOS. I didn't have to be confined to my studio. I didn't have to be confined to a room. I could be producing, creating ideas, and still doing homework with the children, cooking dinner with the family, all of the things that I did last year with my series Adventures in Beatmaking. That was basically the epicenter of what this whole thing is about for me, is balance, to be a great man at the end of it all. And then to be able to give back, because as I give back, I'll be able to help. I'll get more opportunities to be able to do, great things for others. And that only just helps build my legacy. So all of this is a time commitment, but really it's just trusting God and trusting His process, and learning that, as your career might take a dip and your spouse's rises, or your kids are starting to excel and you want to put more into them, it might take a little dip from your career, and you might have to sacrifice a lot of things. You might have to sacrifice not making as much, or not being so much focused on how much money am I accumulating, how much wealth, it's all of it at the same time. And so I don't take it lightly. It's a daily practice and something that I'm trying to strive to be great at. And I just hope to God that I'm doing the best thing for my life. So that's what it is. What would you consider the essentials? Not what you have in your bag, but like most basic things you need to get started. DAW, plugin, sound library, adapter. When it breaks down to essentials, you got to have some type of hardware device, a laptop, iOS device, iMac computer, Mac Mini, some type of computer, something that's going to get your ideas going off top. When it comes to plugins, I think a lot of people they think too hard about having, oh, I need to accumulate so much in a certain amount of time. If you have enough money to get started with a single DAW, right? Logic, FL, Pro Tools, a Cubase, a BeatMaker 3, a Aria Pro. Learn what type of device fits your budget, and then fits your workflow. Some people like to work on pads. Some people like to click and drag. Learn what works for you, and from there, do your research and find the DAW, and then really dive into what that DAW can do. Because we'll get a DAW and then we're like, okay, we got to get so many plugins. We got to get this. I got to get all these sounds. I got to get that. There's free sounds on the internet, that people are uploading on a daily basis. There's ways that you can always get sounds. But think about what you have, work, create, and then find out what you're lacking, what you're missing. And so, if you have a single DAW, if you have a device, you can always find sound libraries all throughout the internet. And with an audio interface, that's really about what sounds are you bringing in. If you're going to be recording vocals, if you're going to be recording your guitar or bass, or you really want to record more of a live instrument, then you're definitely going to need an interface. But if you're not, sometimes you might just need an amplifier or an adapter or something small that's not very expensive, that's just going to amplify your sound so that you can get more from your device to kind of give it a louder, boomier sound. And I've talked about that before, but any audio interface will help you amplify your sound. But if you have a device, 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to hook up a keyboard if that's what you want to do. You'll be able to plug in some headphones if that's what you want to do. And you just go and you get started, because that's what you need to do. You just need to start, and you need to create, and you need to show those things. That's the other thing. You really need to show what you're working on. You really need to show your circle, your family, your friends, what you do, so that they can share it with others, so that they can pass it on, or they can give you the right criticism. And it starts within your circle. My first bout at being in this music industry was because I shared what I was producing and what I was doing at a family reunion. And my cousin's husband, his best friend, was working on movies. They showed it to him, and I started to build a relationship with that guy. And next thing you know, I got signed to a production deal and started working in LA on movies. But it was because I started showing it to my circle, to my family, and from there came opportunity, and I haven't looked back since. First and foremost, you're truly an inspiration, for real. I got an iPad Pro after watching your videos. My man, appreciate that. The 2 questions I have: what camera are you using for your overhead shots? 2, do you know whether or not Rolly Seaboard block is compatible with BeatMaker 3? Okay, I lied. 3 questions. How do you use AudioShare to export sample folders into BeatMaker? So number 1, what kind of camera do I use for my overhead shots? That's a Sony RX100 Mark V. I will show you guys in a second how I set up. A lot of people were asking, how do I set up my filming setup? I chose that camera because it's small, it's compact, it gives me great quality, and it has great autofocus, so I don't have to worry about looking at it. A lot of times, you want to make sure that it's always in focus. And there's a ton of little cameras that can do that, little point and shoots. Now, granted, this is one of the most expensive point and shoots at about $1,000, but there's Lumix versions, there's Canon versions that will give you similar quality. My thing was I needed something that wasn't going to weigh down on my little jerry-rigged system that I had up there, and I'll take y'all up there in a second to show you what I got. But that was that. For number 2, with the Rolly C-Block board, I played with it. I don't personally own one, and so I have never used it within BeatMaker 3, so I can't really answer that. But number 3, how do you use AudioShare to export sample folders into BeatMaker? If you're bringing sounds into AudioShare and you put them in a folder, you can hold down on that folder and it'll say you want to create a zip. You create a zip file of all of those sounds. And then from there, you go and you hit that arrow button that shares it to BeatMaker 3. And then, you share that zip file as BeatMaker 3. BeatMaker 3 will see that file and it can unzip it within that app. And then it will go into either to your imports folder, or if it's just a bunch of sounds, it will go straight into your samples folder. And it's been an easy process for me. Just make sure that you keep your files and your stuff organized, so you know that you know where they're at, and it's an easier process when you want to get started and get creative. Would you consider schools like Full Sail University or Art Institute to be worthy the cost, or would you say the best way to learn music production would? Or what would you say the best way to learn music production would be? Personally, I'm into EDM music, EDM style music, but of course I still enjoy hip hop. So listen, if you are thinking about going to school, like a Full Sail, Art Institute, SAE, one of those music technology schools, I definitely would say go. People ask, did I go to school? Did I go to college? Yes, I did. I went to Morehouse College here in Atlanta, Georgia. And, one of the biggest things for me was not only the education, but the network. And I'm going to continue to keep going back to the networking, because you could be creating, trying to learn your craft and try to figure out exactly how to, get your start, get your work out there. And you're stuck in your room, or you're stuck in, your town that not a lot of people live in, or whatever it is. And then you go ahead and you try for years, and you might, over time get somewhere. But say, for instance, you invested your time and your money, and you went to a school like a, Full Sail, Art Institute, and you met, a whole bunch of these people that were just like you, trying to do the same things. Now, there might be some competition there. That's everywhere. That's life. But at the same time, you're going to build a network of people from all different walks of life, from all different places, sometimes all different parts of the world, that you'll be able to start to build relationships with like-minded, sometimes at the same level, and you guys are kind of starting to build together, build a rapport. And as people leave and graduate and go on, you have that network of all these people. And now you've built a circle and a network around where you can call on, or they can call on you, to be able to, get opportunities from. And then on top of that, you would have all the education that you learn from, learning the specifics on production and engineering and the business, and, how to set everything up. All of those things will just intertwine, help you succeed faster. And I'm telling you that you get in what you put in. Invest in your career, invest in the where you're trying to go. Sometimes it's about investing into school, sometimes it's about investing in equipment, sometimes it's like investing into just going hard, being out there on the scene, go to any event, networking there, go to any conference or any type of situation to where you can put yourself around other like-minded people to get ahead. Either way it goes, you're going to invest. But make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So I would always recommend going to a school, because for me, going to Morehouse College out here in Atlanta has helped me in the same way. I met a whole bunch of like-minded dudes who were trying to be the best at what they're trying to do. And now I have a relationship with guys within all walks of life, all genres, all different occupations, and some that are in, music and entertainment, in the entertainment industry, who we've helped each other get to that next level. And so networking is so key. I would always recommend it. And education first. So man, get that knowledge, figure it out, bet on and invest in yourself. So many people ask, how are you doing these videos? How are you having it set up? Let me see behind the scenes of how you got it going. You want to see that? Let's go. All right, so check it out. This is my space and how I record. I have my light. This is my key light coming out to my desk. This is basically just a IKEA desk that I had. It was an actual stand and rise desk, but I converted it to just a regular desk with normal poles on it. As you can see here, I have my GH5. It comes out. I actually drilled a hole into the desk, so the GH5 is there. I have my two iLoud speakers. I have a Behringer mic that I used to sample with, and I have an extra light. This is an Aperture ML9 or whatever that's called, and I have that, you know, kind of facing me. And then up here, this used to be, I used to have a TV here in our room, and this is actually a TV monitor stand, or whatever you call it, a TV stand, wall monitor, you know what I'm talking about. And so what I did was, since it was so sturdy, I took my Rode mic stand, and I positioned it in a way to put my Rode Video Mic Pro Plus onto it, and it just basically faces downward. And then I have my Sony RX100 Mark V that just faces down onto the table, and that is pretty much how I get down. The only other thing you might see is I have this spotlight that I had in my old studio, and I just put a cover over it, so it just kind of bounces light up here next to a couple of these Grammy plaques. And yeah, you know, that is it. That is how I set it up and get it down. And it's pretty simple, minimal, but it has a really cool look to it, especially with the backdrop and all the things that I have behind it. So, boom. Hope that answers the question. I'm interested in a high-level overview on your perspective on the music industry as a producer. Tips on building rapport between new artists and established producers. Proper etiquette in the game. Mostly details on the business side. Now, you take an artist who may be just getting started, and you take, you know, an established producer, and a lot of times these new artists, these new, you know, artists and their team, they want to get with the best production. They want to get with the best people possible. And great question. You know, I think a lot of people, they shoot their shot too early without building their brand up enough. And what I mean by that is that, you know, like I just said, you know, you build your network and you build your team around the circle that you have. You know, look at any producer artist duo, or, you know, people who got their, you know, rise up from great production and, you know, a great artist. A lot of times they were both coming up at the same time, you know, and they built that network and they built that relationship within each other, within themselves. They continuously put out product, and that helped build their brand together. And so I would always recommend a new artist go find a new producer, or maybe a relatively unknown producer that they can vibe with and work with consistently, because it's cool to get that hot track from that A-list producer, but if that one hot track doesn't have enough money to keep it going, doesn't have enough legs to keep it, you know, keep it buzzing where you can promote it and get it on some type of radio or get it on somebody's playlist and continue to build, like, it's just gonna be a one-off that just has this high spark and then fade because you don't have enough money to keep it lit. But on the other hand, if you work with a talented up-and-coming producer, you guys can work on stuff, put music out. Work on stuff, put music out. Keep getting better, build better relationships, and you guys continue to put out music. And next thing you know, people are asking, because you guys created a vibe, created a sound, and they're like, what is this? And then next thing you know, you have people calling you, asking you about your stuff, and you have, you know. And so when you build that rapport between like-minded, you know, the artist getting started, the producer getting started, that'll always yield more results, because you're consistently able to put it out. You're able to put it out more consistently. You understand what I'm saying? And so I hope you understand that, and that, you know, when it comes to building relationships with you know, established producers, people like myself, clear as day, building relationships. You know, if you were to say, okay, I'm trying to build a relationship with Henny, how would you build a relationship? You build a relationship based off of finding things that you like they like. So all the stuff that I'm about, that you can tell that I'm about, you know, if you start talking to me and, you know, asking me questions about things that I'm intrigued about, then it has nothing to do about music production. It has everything to do about building a rapport. And now, you know, I'm like, oh, this dude's cool. We built a rapport based off of gadgets and tech and whatever. And next thing you know, he's in town. He wants to come through and have a drinking, or, you know, we want to grab lunch, or, you know, build a relationship that way. And then over time, we'll just start to work together. And then from there, you have collaboration. And so people have been asking, how do you actually collaborate and how you actually, you know, get to work with established people? It's really about building organic relationships, networking, building, telling you that is key. And so hopefully that answers a few questions in that one question. Hey Henny, thanks for this. Love your videos. My question is, what type of jobs would you suggest for people who are still developing their craft, i.e. trying to break in the industry, but still need money to pay rent, bills, etc.? Thanks again. When it comes to, you know, having something that's going to help pay your bills, that's going to help you constantly grow as a person, but you know, allow you the time and flexibility to still go after your craft, I'm gonna tell you right now, I would recommend, if you have a good standing driving record, to Uber. I'm gonna tell you why. A few years ago, when I was thinking about doing, like, putting myself out there, if you've known me for years, you know me that I'm more of an introvert. I like talking to the people I like talking to. I don't like talking to people that I don't know. That's how I was. I was kind of very shy as a kid. And I didn't necessarily want to have small talk and do this thing that I didn't know how to do very well. And I thought about, what if I started an Uber for a while, pick up that knowledge of just having to talk to different people all throughout the day, building small talk, building that, you know, that elevator pitch, that small talk that I was horrible at, building relationship fast, creating a good vibe, setting the tone and the music, and allowing people their space, all while getting paid and doing it on your own time. Now, you're getting what you put in. I tried it out for a while. It definitely helped with having 2 kids at private school and getting some extra change for the weekend. But I'll tell you like this, what it really helped me with was just allowing me to perfect, you know, having small conversations, building relationships quicker, getting to know somebody pretty quick with asking people, you know, I would really challenge myself to ask people questions if they were willing to talk. Some people don't want to talk, but all of that with getting, you know, getting paid as well was somewhat enjoyable. It was grueling at times, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't a job that I'd love to do forever, but it was something that I just took up for a few months just to see how it worked in between, you know, royalty periods and stuff like that. I was as I was restarting out this whole new brand and this whole new chapter of my life, and I'll tell you, it definitely helped me. And so I'd recommend that if you have a good driving record, have the car that'll work for it. You can see some great benefits in it if you think of it from that perspective. Another question says, hey Henny, I feel like I'm just programming the same drum beat over and over. What are some ways I can break out of my rut and expand my abilities? So when I was in school, I would take, you know, everybody, you know, in my dorms, like CD books, I'd ask to borrow them and look at, you know, what producers and songwriters and people that they admired, you know, were on the artist that they were working, like on the artist CD. And I look at the little booklet and see who was producing what. And I listen to the songs and I try to understand the vibe, right? So if I were you, I would go and, you know, go on Apple Music, Spotify, and listen to some of that music that you're inspired by. Have it in one ear and start trying to learn the drums that they're doing with your iPad or with, you know, whatever DAW that you're using to create a better palette of different drum programming skills. I literally would do that, listening to, you know, my favorite producers, and I would get this, you know, how do I get swing in my boom bap, or how to hit, you know, how do I do the 808s or the tricky hi-hats, or all these things that you learn just as trying to learn production over time. And you literally try to recreate their drums or their ideas, it's almost like you're tracing, like you're an artist, like you put that tracing paper over, something that you want to trace, and you're learning how it was drawn, and then you take the tracing paper away and you're like, ah, that sucked. And then you try it again, and over time it starts to look more like the picture. You realize that you can do the same for drum programming and getting the ideas to be able to have new abilities, new strengths when it comes to getting different drums. And then when you go back and start to do your own original pieces, you just have this knowledge that's in the back of your head when you're creating, and you'll realize you aren't creating the same drums over and over again. You're creating something new and fresh, and it works out tremendously. I'm telling you, drum programming is key when it comes to electronic music. It's just, you gotta learn it. You gotta learn to understand. And coming up soon, I'm gonna do an entire video on how to get better drum programming, better sound selection, and all of that. So look out for that. Question asked, how did you make the transition from a 9-to-5 to music full-time? What really put things in motion for you to make that leap? So given the fact that I kind of knew really when I was young that I wanted to do music, by the time I got to college, that was my goal. When I graduated college, I was doing music. I was not trying to go into any other career. And by the grace of God and the hard work and dedication, by my junior year, I was already in a production deal. And I had already, signed my first deal, and I was working towards becoming a professional music producer. Now, don't get me wrong, I had the opportunity to move to California to work on movies, work on soundtracks and movie scoring and stuff like that. It was not easy. There were many times my bills weren't paid, my bills were late, my lights were turned off, did not know where my next meal was coming from sometimes, and I had to lean on everybody. I think anybody in my circle, anybody that is part of my inner circle, my family, I've leaned on probably at one point in time of my career that I might needed a prayer or a meal or a loan or anything like that. So don't think that you can do this by yourself. It is impossible. I'll tell you that much. And so having a great circle around me, having, tremendous parents who invested so much into me, financially, spiritually, physically, the whole thing. And so I never had to have a 9-to-5. And up until this day, I've taken different gigs. I want to do a whole series on all the ways that, my talents have made me money throughout my years. It's been a blessing, but it's definitely been hard. So I've never had that transition. But if you're looking to make that transition from your 9-to-5 into music, know how hard it's going to be. Know how many people you're going to lean on. Know how many people are going to doubt you and not really give you the energy you need to keep going. But you got to go all the way in to be able to see the results. If not, you're going to get in what you put in. That's just the laws of it all. And so, it's very hard. It's very challenging. And those around you, they have to believe in what you're doing just as much as you believe. Specifically, if you got a family or something like that, you gotta believe that it's possible. You gotta be patient, and you gotta go hard, because that's the only way that this is going to work. And so, I can't tell you which ways are the best ways to transition, because I never really had to. But I'll tell you this: transitioning from being in a production duo, being in a partnership where I was more of the creative and my business partner was more of the business end, to trying to do something completely different like I have been within the last 3 to 5 years has been just as challenging. And, I had to go all in. I needed the support from my family, the support from my wife, and everybody around me to understand that this thing is going to take, it's going to take some time again, just like it was in the beginning. And I need, the prayers and that patience to know that when all this turns around again, it's going to be even more amazing than it was the first time. But you need that good circle, you need that faith, and you need to trust that if you jump all the way in, you're not by yourself, even if you feel like you are, because God is always with you. That's what I got for that one. Somebody asked, what's the best way to submit songs for placement? Now, you got to think of placement in a few different things, right? Submitting songs, submitting beats for placement. You know, there are TV, you know, placements, movie placements, commercials, you know, all of those things, as well as getting placed on an album or an artist. So I've done all of the above. I've done TV placements, I've done movie placements, I've done movie scoring, I've done commercials, and of course I have done placements on artists. And I'll tell you one thing, they all revolve around networking, period. So say for instance, TV, movie, sync placements, those, you know, those types of things. There are, you know, different companies that actually seek out producers, artists, people who have catalog to put their music in a pool of music, a pool of a playlist or something you might call it, to send out to different music supervisors that are working on movies and commercials, soundtracks, and TV shows, stuff like that. What you'll run into is those type of companies usually take 50% off the top rate of, you say for instance, you're getting paid, who knows, $1,000. They would take $500 from that $1,000, and they would go ahead and get your, you know, if it was placed, that's what they would do, but they would still give you your publishing. They would still give you your back end, your, you know, your royalties. It can be looked at as a great way to get started. I know a lot of people who do TV and reality TV music, they can get started that way. And, you know, it's still about finding those companies that you can trust and, you know, that really have that reach. And so that you don't feel like you're just in a sea full of songs that might never get picked. So there's that, right? And then there's also just, you know, music supervisors who love to work with up and coming talent, who are looking for new music for their whatever shows or projects they're working on. And so you should start to Google and search who, you know, what are some music supervisors out there that work on different projects, and see if you can find a way to build a relationship with them. Not by just submitting your music, but asking them questions and building a rapport, and see if they will get back to you and figure out what the process is. You know, try to figure out the understanding of what makes their job fun and what they like about their job. They probably don't like you just submitting tracks saying, hey, have you listened to my music yet? Have you listened to my music yet? What do you think? It's just bombarding, and it's annoying, and people tend to get turned off by that. And so, you know, even if you're submitting your music to A&Rs and sending your music to different record labels trying to get placed, 95% of all my placements never came that way. It always came from, you know, bumping into an artist manager, or being at a conference and running into a music supervisor, or knowing a manager who knows another manager who can get you, you know, an opportunity to submit some music to that person, and you know, somebody co-signs you and says, oh, this guy's pretty dope, take a listen to his music. And that person's like, oh, word, let me check it out, send it, you know, or let me get your contact. All of those things is what builds the network, what builds the relationship, and allows you to get a little bit closer to that goal of getting that placement. Now, artists is the same way, building with the artist and building with the managers is key. And if you don't have that type of reach, don't think that it's just gonna work, because it's hard out here. People are trying to do that all day long, and usually there's only 14, 15 slots on an album. If you don't have a relationship with that artist or that project or that manager, even the A&R sometimes doesn't even have that specific relationship there with the artist. And so it can be difficult. And I would always suggest that you work with those that are around you. I'll say this again, because that's the way that you will build your net worth. And because you'll be putting music out there that people will enjoy, and then you'll be building that brand up, and then you'll get those opportunities based off of you putting in the work. So that's how I would go about placements. That's how I would go about submissions and just building network. But I'll say that over and over again. Networking, building relationships, and doing the hard work is going to get you where you want to go. So Another question is, would you consider critiquing beats? And then also, what are 3 lessons you learned to date from working with some of the most talented, hardworking people? I've definitely thought about critiquing beats online and going live and, you know, viewing other people's beats. And given the time frame, if I can start to develop that into part of my weekly schedule, yeah, definitely take a look out and see if that comes up on my timeline or something that's up and coming, because I definitely think that's a cool way to give back and listen to other tracks and give my criticism and my advice on what they should do for specific beats. So yes, I will be thinking about doing that soon. But 3 things that I've learned from working with some successful, highly hardworking people, I would honestly say it would be patience, networking, and believing in yourself. I'll say this, you know, the hardest thing to do about being in the music industry, the hardest thing to do is to be patient. Patience to learn, patience to get the knowledge that you need to get, and then also patience to just grow enough to be able to get to that place. But that falls in line with networking, because if you are a lab rat, if you're somebody who's just stuck in your room creating and never putting your music out, you never go out there, you never start building relationships, you're not going to get very far. You know, you have to do these things in tandem with believing in yourself and just knowing that it's going to be possible. I'll say this probably in every video, because being patient, networking, and putting yourself out there, and then continuously believing in yourself is what I saw in all of these hardworking people. You know, I seen, you know, artists like Kendrick Lamar when he was the guy in the back of the studio helping with hooks, you know, and people didn't know who he was. And then all of a sudden he started to rise up. And I know he had to continue to be patient. I remember Drake when he first got affiliated with, you know, Young Money, and he was trying to figure out, you know, his lane and everything that he was working on. And he was patient, and he worked hard, and he built a network, and his team was strong. And you see where he is today. I've worked with so many artists. I remember working with Chris Brown when nobody believed in him anymore. And he had to be patient and continuously work hard and put out great music. And fortunately, we were able to help him at the point of that return of his career. And he you know, worked his ass off and believed in himself and was patient. When the music came out, it spoke for itself, and his fans continuously came back and back and back. And just, you know, I've seen it over and over again in my career, knowing that, you know, there are times where you want to do different things, or you want to go in a different direction, and you just have to be patient. You have to continue to put yourself out there, and you have to believe in yourself. So I say all of that to say those are the 3 things that you really have to have in this thing: your patience, your networking ability, and the belief in yourself. You know? And don't get me wrong, there are so many other things that would help, you know, but those 3 things will definitely take you to that next level when you continuously practice all of that, especially having the faith in God, knowing that you're never doing this by yourself. You're never by yourself. He's always with you. So, man, I'm telling you, all of those things will help you get there. And yep, that's that. That's what I got. That's what I got for you today. This is my first Q&A on my channel. This is the 2nd time that I've recorded this entire thing, but I'm telling you, I had to be patient myself today. Hopefully you're getting something out of that. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Drop a comment down. If there's a question that I didn't get to, you can repost it down there or DM me. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you this time. I didn't want to make this video super duper long. Yeah, hopefully you got something out of that. And you show me a like, show me a comment, drop something down there, and I'll see you when I see you, because I'm definitely gonna be back in a few with another video. You know how I get down. Gotta get up out this chair though. I've been sitting for hella long. Let's go. I'll see you when I see you next time.